Hong Kong crams 7.5 million people into a concrete maze where skyscrapers tower and tiny 15-square-meter apartments sell for millions. With just 25% of its 1,104 square kilometers developed, housing prices have soared 20% yearly since 2010, leaving homeownership a distant dream for most. Here at Urban Giants, we're diving into the government's wild fix, Lantau Tomorrow Vision, an $80 billion plan to pluck 1,700 hectares of land from the sea. Picture 260,000 homes, a new financial hub, and transport links, all engineered on water near Lantau Island. It's a technical beast. 20 million cubic meters of fill, 15-meter seabed dredging, seawalls braced for rising tides. The promise? House 1 million, boost the economy. The catch? Costs could hit $120 billion. Ecosystems might collapse, and cheaper land sits unused. Is this Hong Kong's salvation or a $100 billion blunder? How do you build an island for 1 million people? Let's unpack the stakes. Hong Kong's 7.5 million residents squeeze into a mere 77 square kilometers zoned for housing, just 7% of its 1,104 square kilometers. That's 2,650 people per square kilometer, one of the planet's densest urban sprawls. Demand outpaces supply by 200,000 units, says 2023 government data, driving 40 square meter flats to $1.5 million, unreachable for 60% of households under $40,000 a year. Meanwhile, 760 square kilometers, or 70%, languish as country parks or idle lots, with developers like Sun Hun Kai hoarding 45 square kilometers of brownfields. The government's answer? Lantau Tomorrow Vision, a 623 billion Hong Kong dollar or 80 billion US dollar mega project to dodge land fights by crafting a new island. The plan is ambitious. Reclaim 1,700 hectares, 17 square kilometers off Lantau's east coast, tripling its developed footprint. Updated from 1,000 hectares in 2021, it'll support 1.1 million people in 260,000 units, 182,000 public, or 70% at 30 to 50 square meters, and 78,000 private, or 30% for wealthier buyers. Density hits 65 units per hectare, topping Kowloon's 50. Engineering-wise, it's a monster. Dredge 40 square kilometers to 15 meters, haul in 20 million cubic meters of sand and rock, 50 tons per meter, and compact it for 50-story towers. A third Central Business District, or CBD, targets Central's 14,000 workers per square kilometer, adding 400,000 jobs across 200 hectares of commercial space, 50 towers averaging 150 meters. Transport ties it together, a 15-kilometer highway to Tuen Mun, a 10-kilometer bridge to Hong Kong Island, and a 20-kilometer MTR extension with 5 stations, moving 50,000 passengers hourly. That slashes Tung Chung to Central commutes from 45 to 25 minutes. Officials predict a 200 billion Hong Kong dollar economic lift by 2040, banking on 3% GDP growth from construction and land sales. It's a bypass for messy rezoning battles, aiming to drop prices 10% with a supply surge. But the risks are steep. Dredging in typhoon territory, stabilizing fill for 2-meter sea level rise by 2100, critics point to 1,000 hectares of idle new territories land, enough for 500,000 people at a quarter of the cost. Is this a stroke of genius or a bloated overreach? Hong Kong's pulled off reclamation before, Central, the airport, but this 80 billion US dollar or 623 billion Hong Kong dollar project dwarfs them, and the hurdles are massive. Official estimates are optimistic. Experts warn of $120 billion with inflation, or 3% yearly, and delays. Past mega projects average 20% overruns. Dredging 40 square kilometers to 15 meters needs 20 million cubic meters to fill, sourced from China's tapped-out quarries or Southeast Asia's rivers where 50 million tons vanish yearly per UN stats. Moving it means 1,000 barge trips monthly, guzzling 500,000 liters of diesel each round. $500 million extra and 1.2 million tons of CO2 over 10 years. The environment takes a beating. The 1,700-hectare site overlaps the Chinese white dolphin's turf, already down 80% to 50% since 2000. Dredging churns 10 million tons of sediment, cutting water oxygen 30% and wiping fish stocks within 5 kilometers per Hong Kong University research. Seawalls at 6 meters aim to beat 2-meter sea rises by 2100, but typhoon surges, up 10% in force since 1990, could flood 500 hectares, says the Hong Kong Observatory. Sand mining abroad echoes Vietnam's Mekong Delta, which lost 500 hectares to similar grabs. With Hong Kong's net zero by 2050 goal, this is a carbon nightmare. Alternatives abound. The new territory's 1,000 hectares of brownfields could house 300,000 at $20 billion, or $66,000 per unit, versus Lantau's 461,000. Golf courses, 170 hectares, and deserted villages, 100 hectares, add 80,000 units for $5 billion, leveraging existing infrastructure. Rezoning takes 2 to 3 years. Reclamation, 15. Developers hold 50% of idle land and rural clans resist. But the government argues reclamation skips all of that mess. Still, technical risks loom. Fill sinking 1 meter, Kansai Airport sank 1.5 meters, typhoons pushing timelines 5 years per Hong Kong Engineers Institute. Why spend $80 billion to dodge a $25 billion fix? It's a high-stakes roll of the dice. Lantau's quiet charm, Discovery Bay's shores, Tung Chung's laid-back malls, faces a jolt with this project. For 150,000 locals, it's a mixed bag. The third CBD, sprawling 200 hectares, could bring 400,000 jobs, 100,000 in finance or 100,000 Hong Kong dollar salaries, 200,000 in retail and tech per Hong Kong Development Bureau. That's a 50% leap from Lantau's 80,000 workers. 5 million square meters of commercial space might lure 50 firms like HSBC, hiking Discovery Bay flat values 20%, 2 million Hong Kong dollars each as executives settle in. Transport upgrades help. A 20-kilometer MTR line with 5 stations having 50,000 hourly capacity trims Tung Chung to central trips from 45 to 25 minutes for 30,000 commuters. A 15-kilometer highway to Tuen Mun handles 10,000 vehicles daily, cutting truck times 30%. But of course, there's a downside. Construction, 15 years, 5,000 workers, sends 500 trucks daily through Tung Chung, boosting PM 2.5 pollution 25%, 40 micrograms per meter cubed to 50 micrograms per meter cubed per HKUST. Noise from dredging and piling hits 90 decibels, 50% over Lantau's 60 decibel norm, disrupting Discovery Bay's calm. Traffic jumps with 20,000 cars daily from the highway and bridge, clogging Tung Chung's 5,000 vehicle roads by 40%. By 2040, 1.1 million newcomers double Lantau's density to 500 per square kilometer, risking overdevelopment. Prices could climb 30%, with 3 million Hong Kong dollar flats, sidelining locals at 30,000 Hong Kong dollar yearly incomes per HK Economic Times. Dolphins lose 20% habitat. Silt slashes fishing yields 30% or 1,000 tons yearly for 500 Tung Chung fishermen. Jobs and links might shine short-term, but long-term, gridlock, dirtier air, 10% over WHO limits, and a vanishing rural feel. If the CBD flops, West Kowloon's 20% vacancy in 2005 looms. Noise comes without reward. Seawalls and rail must hold up, or it's a bust for residents. So we've seen the promise and the peril for Lantau's residents, jobs and links versus traffic and pollution. But what's your take so far? Could this mega project lift Hong Kong, or is it a recipe for chaos? Drop your thoughts in the comments. We're halfway through and there's much more to unpack. Hit that like if you're hooked and subscribe for more deep dives like this. Now let's keep rolling. Hong Kong has snatched 70 square kilometers from the sea since 1887. The 20 billion Hong Kong dollar or 2.6 billion US dollar Hong Kong International Airport opened 1998, and it forged 12 square kilometers off Chek Lap Kok for 34 million passengers yearly. Its 3,300-meter runway, a 10-meter dredge, 15 million cubic meters of fill, manages 1,100 flights daily built in 6 years despite 5 billion Hong Kong dollar overruns from typhoons and rocky seabed. West Kowloon's 10 billion HKD reclamation in the 1990s added 3 square kilometers, 1 million square kilometers of offices, but lingered 20% vacant for a decade until rail links boosted it to 90% by 2015. Central's 5 square kilometers, phased since 1900 for 15 billion Hong Kong dollars, now props up 200,000 jobs. Lantau Tomorrow's 1,700 hectares, 140% of the airport's size, uses similar tech. Suction dredgers for 20 million cubic meters, 6-meter seawalls, 95% fill density. But it's trickier. The airport dodged dolphin zones. Lantau's 40 square kilometer dredge risks 50% habitat loss per WWF. Cost per hectare jumps from 4.3 million Hong Kong dollars with the airport to 36 million Hong Kong dollars, 8 times higher with scale and inflation. Past overruns hit 25%, so Lantau's $80 billion could reach $100 billion. The airport thrived with 80 million passengers by 2019. West Kowloon's lag warns of slow starts. Lantau's CBD needs 80% tenancy fast, or it's a $20 billion ghost town. Typhoons stretch the airport 18 months. Lantau's 15 years could hit 20. A lot can happen in 15 years. Kansai Airport sank 1.5 meters post-1994. Lantau's silt risks 1 meter drops, costing $5 billion to fix. Demand drove past winds. Lantau's 260,000 homes must sell, or it's a dud. Lantau Tomorrow Vision offers 260,000 homes, a 200 billion Hong Kong dollar economic shot, and a third CBD, a lifeline for Hong Kong's cramped 7.5 million. It's a technical titan, 20 million cubic meters of fill, 15-meter dredges, 6-meter seawalls against 2-meter sea rises. Transport and jobs could transform Lantau, but $80 billion, maybe $120 billion, threatens a fiscal abyss. Dredging guts dolphins, sediment chokes fisheries, typhoons could add 5 years and 20% to costs. The new territory's 1,000 hectares for $25 billion laugh at the scale. Cheaper, quicker, cleaner. Past reclamations soared when demand clicked. Lantau bets on filling 1.1 million spots in 5 million square kilometers of offices in a post-COVID world. A 1-meter sink, a vacant CBD, or a $100 billion overrun could make this Hong Kong's priciest flop. So what do you think? Salvation or sinkhole? Is Lantau Tomorrow Vision Hong Kong's future, or is it destined to fail? Let us know in the comments, and share below any mega projects you like urban giants to tackle next. If this breakdown of ambition versus reality hooked you, hit like, subscribe, and ring the bell, because more epic tales are on the way.